Hi, this is Town Talk, and I'm Gina Keating, the editor of the Olney Enterprise, and I'm here with Wynn Graham, who's running for county judge. I've given him a few questions to answer about that position, and we're going to talk about his answers right now.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
I am very happy to have you here. Thanks for coming from Graham.
You bet.
Okay, so let's just get right to it. So what, in your mind, are the priorities for Young County in the next 4 years?
Okay, so I'm running for county judge because I think the job's important. And I think that there's a lot that we can do with county government that maybe hasn't been imagined yet in county government. And so one of the things I see as a crisis that we have here in Young County is housing. First-time home buyers and renters are often finding that housing is unavailable and unaffordable. And we've got businesses, especially here in Olney. I mean, Olney is an incredible place to get a job. We probably have more jobs per capita in Olney than any other town in West Texas. But our employers here can't find workers because those workers have no place to live, and we're having to bus workers in from Wichita Falls every single day. And that creates a lot of leakage in our county. We have revenue that we have salaries that are being earned here that are being spent somewhere else. We have people that are paying property taxes in other locations that should be here. And we have employers that aren't able to make as much product as they should because they can't get the labor force. So I think housing is one of the absolute top things that we need to address in the next 4 years. Another problem that we have in Young County is property taxes, and people are feeling like their property taxes are getting out of control. So a lot of that is out of our hands. That's handled at the state level. But one thing we can do here is find more corporate taxpayers. If you look at Somerville County, which is where Glen Rose, they pay 25% to a third of the property taxes that we pay here, and that's because they have a nuclear power plant. Now, I'm not saying we want a nuclear power plant here, but that's an example of a corporate taxpayer that pays a significant portion of the property taxes and takes the burden off of our residents. The budget, I think it's a huge budget. It's over $19 million, thousands and thousands of line items. I think there's opportunities to tighten that budget up, and I'd like to go through that line by line and understand every dollar that we're spending and try to find opportunities where we can spend less of our taxpayers' money. And finally, but one of the other things I'd like to work with is our volunteer fire departments. I think they're severely underfunded. I think their equipment is aging, and in this day and age, I mean, we saw it this year, wildfires they were out of control this year, and those guys were overworked and underappreciated. And a lot of times these volunteer firemen are having to purchase their equipment with their own money, but they're serving the county. And so I'd like to find ways for the county to help our volunteer fire department.
That's great. Okay, so you're a Republican. The Regional Republican Party has listed mental health and water infrastructure as two of their priorities. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think there's more priorities. The state of Texas has a mental health crisis, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. And that started in the 80s when Reagan started defunding mental health. I hope that that's one of the things that's going to be at the top of their list, and that may be the one good thing that came out of Uvalde is that everyone's talking about mental health. Water, 75% of our counties are classified as being in a severe drought, and water is something that's important to everyone. We can't live without it. So I hope they do address it. Other things I'd like to see our legislature tackle is property tax reform. Kind of like I said earlier, we're all paying more and more and more on our property taxes. There's got to be a better system for us to collect the revenues that we need for our government to provide the services that we want. School safety. Used to be in our small towns, we thought school was the safest place that our kids could be, but we have seen that these school shootings, they're not a big city problem, they're an everybody problem. So I hope our legislature will address school safety. And then finally, I hope they look at education. We've got a 1st through 12th grade problem in the state of Texas that our education seems to be lagging and failing and not getting better. And then I'd like to also see them address secondary education. Colleges have got to be so expensive that it's hard to go for a lot of people. And also, not everybody needs to go to college. For some people, that's not the right place to go. I think we need to invest more in trade schools. And I think we need to celebrate people that are going to trade schools.
Absolutely. Okay, so in light of the $26 billion sales tax surplus, what do you think Young County should ask our lawmakers, Drew Springer and David Spiller, to do budget-wise for Young County?
Well, okay, so I kind of have 3 things I'd like to look at here. One, mental health. We need rural mental health facilities. We have so many people sitting in our jail right now that don't belong there. They're not criminals, they're sick. And they need help. And they're trying to send these guys to mental health facilities, but there's either not beds or there's not staff there to handle all the beds. So I hope that our legislature will address mental health. They need to build some mental health facilities that aren't in these urban areas, build that are true rural mental health facilities. I think that should be at the top of their list. Other thing I'd like to see them address are rural hospitals. During Obamacare, one of the things that happened was a consolidation of our healthcare system. And rural hospitals were set up to fail. Many of them closed. It was on purpose. They wanted to move healthcare into the urban areas. Well, the one thing the pandemic taught us is that rural healthcare is crucial. And we need help at our in Young County, our 2 hospital systems. We need help. And not all rural healthcare systems are on equal footing. And so we need to find ways that these rural healthcare systems can thrive and not just scratch and claw to get by. There's a lot of things they need to work on, but another thing that I thought of is they do have this huge sales tax surplus this year. And you mentioned water earlier, and one thing that I would like to see them do is provide low interest or no interest loans to the municipalities in Texas to fix their aging water systems. Graham has a water problem. Olney has a water problem. And, part of it is it's an expensive problem to fix. And I think both communities have kind of, let's kick the can down the road because it's a huge pill to swallow and it's an overwhelming pill to swallow. If we could get low interest or no interest loans from the state, we can go in and fix these water systems, and most people in the county either get their water from Olney or Graham, and both communities need to invest in their water system, but they can't afford to.
That is a great idea. Okay, so what, if anything, needs to change with regard to the way the Commissioner's Court does its business?
Well, the first thing, Commissioner's Court is a group of 5 people. And those 5 people make all the decisions. But I don't think all 5 people feel like they have equal access to the agenda, that their opinions are being listened to and considered. I think a level of professionalism needs to come to Commissioner's Court. I think everybody needs to feel like, whether you agree with them or not, that they have the opportunity to be heard and that their opinions will be respected, and that in the end, that all 5 people are coming together for the good of everybody in the county. And I think that level of professionalism will permeate to the rest of county government. And I think right now it's very segregated, and people don't necessarily work together. There needs to be this attitude in our county government that everybody's trying to do the absolute best that they can for their constituents, and that if they have the opportunity to, that they can help the other departments to help them do better and do better for their constituents. We're all on one team.
Very good. Okay, so what, if anything, would you change about the way Young County spends and generates its revenue? And how would you preside as budget officer for Young County?
Well, this is an area that I'm really comfortable with.
Figured.
First off, I'm a certified public accountant. I've worked for an international accounting firm. I've worked in investment banking. I've worked with corporate finance for 30 years. I understand budgets. I spend a lot of time with budgets, and I'm very comfortable with budgets. So I'm excited to get hold of the county's budget and to try to find ways to make improvements for everyone who lives here. Revenue, there's a lot of ways to attack it. One way is finding corporate taxpayers. A good example that we have here, we don't have a lot of corporate taxpayers. It's one of the reasons we have such a high property tax. But we just this year are getting a corporate taxpayer rolling onto our tax rolls, and it's the Trinity wind farm here in Olney. It was on a tax abatement. It rolled off of the tax abatement. It's now being taxed at full value. $44.6 million is what it's hitting our tax rolls at. That's 3.6% of the total property value in Young County. That's a pretty significant number. Now, a lot of problems with wind farms. Some people love them, some people hate them. I get that. But we need to find more corporations to make investment in Young County and to take a bigger chunk of that tax burden off of the citizens. So another way we can help is housing, and we touched on it earlier. We have a housing crisis here. People can't find housing. We have people that want to live here that can't find a place to buy or rent. Last year, Graham Independent School District hired a bunch of young teachers. They were excited about those young teachers. They were excited to come here. In the summer, they had to call and say, we're not coming. We can't find a place to live. So we have people that we need here. They want to come here. We need to have new houses, new apartments on the tax rolls so that those people can pay property taxes. Those people will generate salaries that they'll spend here. That'll create a bigger economy in here as the dollars change hands. That'll create more sales tax for the county. And then finally, our companies can make the goods that they need to make, and they'll be able to make more money, which will again filter into our economy. Another thing we can do is we can go through our budget line by line, try to find where we can cut back spending, where some wasteful spending is. Some of that may come up, we need to spend more money. We'll just have to go through it line by line, but we need to understand what we're spending and if we're spending it, if it's the best use of that money. And yeah.
Okay, so anything about just your accounting experience will stand you in good stead, I guess, as a county budget officer, because it's a pretty complicated and important job.
It's big, and it's a long process, and it's a lot of numbers. And I've spent a lot of time with Cheryl and Ann to understand the budget from, understand the budget coming into it. I mean, obviously, a year in county government, you're going to understand it a lot better. But I feel like I have a really strong understanding of the budget as it is right now. And, we'll go department by department, line by line, and we'll make sure if we're spending those dollars that we're spending them wisely.
Great. Okay, so You also are going to have another job, which is presiding over small civil cases, probate matters, and misdemeanor criminal cases. Can you talk about your judicial philosophy?
Well, first off, our judicial system needs to be fair and consistent for everybody. And I believe that minors and first-time offenders deserve an opportunity to redeem themselves. And habitual offenders need to understand that there are strong consequences for their actions. We all want to live in the safest community that we can. And we have to have a social code that people understand. And that social code includes consequences for bad actions. And unfortunately, people sometimes decide to do bad things. Well, we need to educate those people as to why those actions are not going to be tolerated. And we need to give those that are willing to change their behavior and conform to our rules of our community, need to afford them an opportunity to redeem themselves. A big part of our judicial system is managing the process. We have a lot of things coming through. 98 to 90% of the cases that come through end up coming to a plea agreement with the county. But we need that process to be more efficient. It's slow. It's a good example of a lot of times we have allowed attorneys to have their first meeting with their clients during the hearing. And so they'll get called up and the attorney will say, well, I haven't had a chance to talk to my client. And so then they have to call time out and allow the attorney and the client to have their conversations, when the truth of the matter is they should have done this a week ago or the day before or any time besides when their hearing is started. So I want to train our attorneys to meet their clients, before the hearings, and we can make that process move a lot quicker, and we can get more court cases through in a day. I think there's a lot of opportunities to make that system more efficient.
Very interesting. Okay, so one of your jobs is being the head of the emergency management system. So as county judge, do you think that the county is prepared for emergency situations as best it can be?
Well, I think it can be better. We saw this last summer wildfires, and we had at times 3 or 4 different wildfires burning at the same time. And in Elliceville alone, one time they were fighting 3 fires at the exact same time, and there was no coordination to help them know how to move from one spot to the other, how many people are needed at fire 1 and how many need to address fire 2. There's just a lot of improvements that can be done. We should coordinate all of our volunteer fire departments together to where we can do joint trainings and build these relationships between our volunteer fire departments so that they can know each other and more easily help each other. We need to be looking for grants for new equipment and looking at the volunteer fire departments as a group to figure out, okay, who needs the equipment the most and help them get new equipment. Another emergency that we had in the last few years was the freeze, and we didn't have enough shelters for people that had lost their electricity in when we had the brownouts. And so there could be we need to look at that so that if we have another freeze that we can get people where there's heat and food and restrooms. And fingers crossed, I hope we never have a tornado like they had in Jacksboro. And I know that Jacksboro believes they could have handled that better. And we need to go to Jacksboro and understand where their failures and successes were so that we can learn from them and have a better system here.
Great. All right, well, that was extremely informative, and I really appreciate you coming to see us and talk with us.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, well, I'm Gina Keating, editor of the Olney Enterprise, and this is Town Talk.